The landscape of the Bloodline saga and Jacob Fatu's role within it could change during Raw's debut on Netflix. Roman Reigns and Solo Sikoa will do battle in tribal combat, with the winner earning both the Wwe Fala necklace and the title of Tribal Chief. Reigns has already been the Tribal Chief, and winning will essentially return things to how they were over the last few years. Solo Sikoa winning will legitimize his takeover of the group. Outside interference will assuredly take place in the fight to spite the ban. If Solo loses, many more interesting things can happen, especially with Jacob Fatu. If Sikoa falls in tribal combat, the Samoan werewolf could do one of the next four things. One apparent aspect of the new bloodline is Fatu's blind loyalty to Solo Sikoa. His over-the-top yells of "I love you, Solo" are both comedic and telling. Some leaders have blind followers who worship them even if they commit deplorable acts or say terrible things. If his beloved leader falls to the original tribal chief, he may opt to stay loyal to the man who brought him to WWE. It would keep the group together but also set the stage for Sikoa blaming Fatu for the loss. That would, in turn, lead to Fatu's babyface turn. If everything falls apart for the new bloodline, a lot could happen. Instead of Reigns taking time off, Solo and his group could do the same for a few weeks. Roman will probably compete in the Royal Rumble, so he should appear on programming in person. Sikoa and his group have carried the torch as the top faction on SmackDown for much of 2024. They've dominated programming so much that they've appeared on Raw several times. Jacob Fatu's absence could also build anticipation for a potential return during the 2025 Royal Rumble. Braun Breaker had a short but impressive run last year. The Samoan werewolf could have the same run this year, and even make his own choice should his allies appear during the melee. Resting factions don't last forever. Outside of the New Day, most groups have a shelf life of 3 years or less. Evolution, DX, The Shield, Damage CTRL, and many other wrestling factions disbanded to move things forward. If Solo falls in tribal combat on Raw, Jacob Fatu could see the writing on the wall. He routinely impresses the crowd with his moves and often inhuman-like qualities. Sikoa has held him back a few times, especially against top stars like Reigns and Cody Rhodes. Fatu could decide to stand on his own and leave the bloodline. That could open the door for another member like Hikuleo or Lance Anoa'i to take his place. If it gets physical, all the better. https://youtube.b/8c19kdd0. Those who don't learn from history are doomed to repeat it. Roman Reigns lost at WrestleMania 40, but wasn't present to face immediate repercussions. Sikoa turned on his family by assaulting Jimmy Uso. It set the stage for where the feud currently sits. Solo hasn't had much success in terms of tangible rewards like titles. They've beaten up stars on Raw and SmackDown, but that gets old after a while. Should Sikoa fail in another one of his biggest matches, the rest of the bloodline could turn on him. Jacob Fatu is the clear standout of the faction, and would be the rightful person to lead it if another coup takes place. He could do what Sikoa did. That would then put the onus on him for not learning from the past. The Bloodline saga in WWE has been one of the most gripping storylines in recent history, and with Roman Reigns taking a reduced schedule, Solo Sikoa has stepped up as a dominant force within the faction. However, the emergence of Jacob Fatu, a powerhouse and legitimate threat, adds an unpredictable twist to the mix. If Solo Sikoa loses his claim to the tribal chief status on WWE Raw on Netflix, Jacob Fatu's role in the faction, or outside of it, becomes even more intriguing. Here are 4 possible directions for Jacob Fatu if Solo Sikoa fails in his attempt to take full control of the bloodline. Solo Sikoa's push as the enforcer of the bloodline has been impressive, but if he proves unfit to carry the family's legacy as the tribal chief, Jacob Fatu could step in and claim the position for himself. Fatu has an aura of destruction that rivals even Roman Reigns. His physicality, agility, and ruthless nature make him the perfect candidate to lead the faction into a new era. If Solo loses his authority, the bloodline structure could collapse into chaos. The Usos, Paul Heyman, and other family members may start questioning who should take control. This is where Jacob Fatu could strike. By decimating Solo Sikoa and asserting dominance, he could cement himself as the new leader of the bloodline, rallying members like Tama Tonga and Tonga Loa behind him. This would create a new chapter in the faction's history, with Jacob Fatu running the family in a way even more brutal than Roman Reigns ever did. This route would instantly establish Jacob Fatu as WWE's next unstoppable force, leading to potential rivalries with Cody Rhodes, Seth Rollins, or even a returning Roman Reigns looking to reclaim his spot. If Solo Sikoa loses his status as the tribal chief, it could serve as an eye-opener for Jacob Fatu. Instead of following Solo's vision for the bloodline, he could decide that the true leader has always been Roman Reigns. This scenario would see Jacob Fatu betraying Solo, possibly in brutal fashion, aligning himself with a returning Roman to restore order in the family. This would immediately position Jacob Fatu as Roman's new right-hand man, essentially replacing Solo in the hierarchy. The dynamic between Fatu and Reigns could be similar to that of Batista and Triple H in Evolution, where Fatu starts as the loyal enforcer but slowly becomes too powerful to remain in the background. By aligning with Reigns, Fatu could elevate himself to main event status faster than if he were to build his own faction. The long-term implications of this could see Fatu eventually turning on Reigns, setting up a future blood feud within the family. If Solo Sikoa loses his claim as tribal chief, it doesn't necessarily mean he'll fade into obscurity. Instead, this could lead to a massive civil war within the Inoue family, with Reigns potentially reclaiming leadership or another family member stepping up. Solo and Jacob Fatu could refuse to fall in line and create their own dominant force separate from the bloodline. This faction could include stars like Bronson Reed, Rikishi as a mentor figure, and other hard-hitting Samoan wrestlers who feel overshadowed by Roman Reigns' rule. Instead of following in the footsteps of past leaders, Solo and Fatu could reshape their legacy as destroyers, showing they don't need the traditional tribal chief hierarchy to succeed. The feud between this new faction and the bloodline would be one of WWE's most personal and brutal rivalries, filled with family betrayals, high-stakes matches, and an eventual clash at a major event like WrestleMania. While the bloodline storyline is compelling, Jacob Fatu has the potential to be a standalone force in WWE. If Solo Sikoa loses his leadership, Fatu could decide that family politics aren't for him and embark on a destructive solo career. This would see Fatu tearing through WWE's roster, targeting major stars and asserting himself as an unpredictable wrecking machine. He could start by taking down established names like Bobby Lashley, Sheamus, or Drew McIntyre, proving that he doesn't need the bloodline to become a dominant force. A solo run would also give Fatu the freedom to challenge for the WWE Championship or World Heavyweight Championship without being tied to family drama. If booked correctly, he could become the next Brock Lesnar-like monster who dominates WWE for years to come. Jacob Fatu's potential in WWE is limitless, and if Solo Sikoa fails as the tribal chief, it opens up multiple avenues for Fatu's character. Whether he takes control of the bloodline, betrays Solo for Roman Reigns, forms his own faction, or becomes an unstoppable solo force, Fatu's future in WWE looks incredibly bright. Regardless of which path WWE chooses, one thing is certain: Jacob Fatu is a game changer, and his arrival will shake WWE to its core.